Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook. This week's guest is Theresa Roman. Theresa, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. We appreciate you taking the time to come on down.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So the first thing we typically like to do on this show is, just kind of take a blast from the past, kind of go back in your psyche before you're a real estate agent. You're kind of kicking around the tires thinking this might be a career path for you. Maybe it's friends, family, somebody's kind of steering, navigating, directing you to this career path. Maybe it's, television or an experience purchasing or selling a home with an agent that you kind of got that interest. Why don't you kind of share with the audience what kind of sparked your interest in real estate and how the journey began?
Okay, well, it was probably 6 years ago. My daughter was around 1 or 2, and I was working for workers' compensation, a lot of hours, and honestly, it was miserable for me, and literally crying every day. Somebody else was taking care of my kids, and I just kind of wanted the flexibility to stay home with them. So when she was 1, I quit that job, and I decided to get my license.
Awesome. And then so you're kind of working a job, you have the mandated hours, you want to be there more for your kids, you just had a daughter, 1, assuming daycare, nanny, something of that nature.
Yes.
And you kind of wanted to find a way where you could have the flexibility to not only provide income for your family, but in addition, be there for your daughter as well.
Absolutely.
What made you choose, obviously there's several options out there. What was it about real estate that struck out?
Well, to be honest, at first, I liked going into homes, and I feel like I'm a people person.
Right.
I like talking to people. I like getting to know people. I'm comfortable talking to people. And really that was like my first initial thought is I like going into homes and I like people. So those two things.
Put it together. Absolutely. So then, one thing we like to do too is see what kind of skill set or maybe things you've learned from your past endeavors that have carried over into real estate. Obviously, you've got into production and are experiencing more, greater success than most agents. So obviously, not to bring up any bad memories or anything kind of going back into your mind, with the workers' compensation job. But what were some of the things, maybe some of the skills or things that you kind of learned through that career that helped you get into production quicker as a real estate agent? Maybe some skills or a skill set that you picked up there.
Time management, managing people, actually, and it's kind of funny, but a lot of people don't know, but negotiations. If the person cannot go back to work because they're injured too bad, you have to negotiate and you have to, figure out a way to pay that person for the rest of their life. So negotiations was big.
So why don't you tell us a little about it? Because this is something that I've never heard before, so I'm actually interested. So workers' compensation, are you kind of the underwriter for a claim almost? Like a claim gets put in and you're determining what the payout is, almost like an adjuster?
You're an adjuster, workers' comp adjuster, but you get it from beginning to end. So the minute they get hurt, you have to send them to the doctor, and then you have to manage that file. At the end of the day, you have to get them back to work. That's your goal. So following up with doctors, reading the reports, and getting them back to work. And if that person cannot go back to work, then they have to go to court, and you have to figure out basically the payout.
And how is that kind of determined, the payout? I'm sure there's different variables, like how severe the injury is, what they were doing, how much money they were making. Is there a certain formula or something that y'all use, like an algorithm?
To be honest, I can't remember. It was so long ago, but yes, I have to go into the file and kind of do calculations on, and it really depends. They could not get a payout. They don't have to negotiate. They can go to the doctor for the rest of their life, and we just have to pay it, or we would have to pay it. So
every case is different then?
Every case is different.
Interesting. I never knew I thought it was always cut and dry. I knew obviously, it's going to depend on profession and obviously the type of coverage that they have, but there's like a formula, like, hey, if they can work X amount, then they get this percentage. If they can't go back to work, then they got this percentage of their pay type thing. But there is a formula, and yes, but each adjuster
does it themselves.
Got it.
And then we kind of have to review it with the manager, and as long as the manager says okay, it was all on us.
It's almost like an appraiser, kind of.
Appraiser, adjuster, yep, exactly.
Same thing.
Yep.
So some things I picked up too. I know you brought up time management, very important, managing people and negotiations. Obviously there's a lot of negotiations in that, which helped you be a strong negotiator in real estate. But one of the main things I picked up that you stated was a process too, because it sounds like you have a starting point and an end point, similar to a real estate transaction, right?
Yes.
You pick up a client, maybe it's a buyer, you start showing them homes, and the goal is obviously to get them to the closing table where they get the keys to their new house.
Yep.
And workers' comp, it's kind of like you had a process and you were very methodical in your step-by-step what to do with incorporating the time management, the discipline, and then also, negotiations later on. Do you think that kind of process and having the mindset of you understanding that, allowed a smoother transition into real estate when you because a lot of agents are getting overwhelmed, right? Yeah. Show the home, write the offer, get it executed. What do I do now? Boom, boom, boom. But with you kind of already having the mindset, you're like, okay, I calm down a little bit. It's just another process. Let me figure out what I need to do and how do I navigate through these waters?
Yes, I do feel like it was an easier transition for me because of the time that I was an adjuster. But also, looking back, my initial thought was, I like to show homes, so maybe I need to do this. But then Allison said something to me the other day, and it's kind of stuck with me. But we, as real estate agents, we are, what did she say?
Problem solvers.
Problem solvers. And I never looked at it like that until now. And I was like, it's kind of changed my mindset. Mm-hmm. I love what I do, and I don't just think it's showing houses anymore. Mm-hmm. But now I'm like, I'm a problem solver every day. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of shifted my thinking.
Mindset?
Yeah, I always say that, a real estate agent, professional, their money's made once the client goes under contract, right? That's where it's made. And everybody thinks like, all right, get them under contract, smooth sailing, we're making it to the finish line. That's where you're going to have a lot of problems. And every closing's different, every transaction's different. You never know what's going to come your way. So it's just kind of having that skill set to try to create a win-win between buyers and sellers and bring them both to the finish line of, the goal of buying and selling the house. And
right.
I think a lot of agents, especially newer ones, think, hey, once I got them under contract, let me go work with another buyer, get another one under contract. This one's good to go. It's like, no, this is when you really start to work.
You're right, exactly.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to hustle.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been times where things have been coming at me, and I'm like, okay, I've got to handle this, then I got to handle this, and I got to handle this, but who do I call? Who do I contact for this problem? Mm-hmm. And then you have to, and you can't be afraid of picking up the phone.
No, 100%.
And not becoming aggressive, but becoming assertive with people.
And very proactive, right away. Don't let things linger where you kind of get in your mindset. Like, go ahead, just something comes up, address it right away, and figure out how you can find a solution.
Right. And I was actually telling my husband this last night, as in, I can't go to sleep at night if there's things on my plate. Mm-hmm. I've got to get it taken care of that day. Mm-hmm. So if there's 3 issues, I need to figure out an answer for all 3 or a solution for all 3 before I can sleep at night.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like an anxiety built in me. I don't know. He tells me that's not good, but.
No, I think most people have that. I think it's anxiety. There's people who I call them that, they'll duck their head in the sand when shit goes wrong. But I notice that those people typically are much more anxious people because I think the anxiety builds up until you get off. And maybe you don't have the solution. I think the anxiety from is, hey, I just got to get this information out, right? And once you get the information out, we're working on it. Yep. You might not have it fixed, but let the clients know. Don't. If you hold it in and be like, shit, tomorrow I got to call them. What time am I going to call them? What am I going to say? Right. That's just going to be going through your mind all night.
Yes, agreed.
So, I agree with you 100%. So one thing I always like to ask, obviously, when you're thinking about real estate, you like to show homes, you like the interaction with people, you want the flexibility, kind of get out of, the more structured job where you can be in control of your own destiny, essentially. What's the one thing you did not expect when you got into real estate?
Well, starting with 54 Realty actually has put me into I need to use my calendar. I need to block out time, which I wasn't doing that before. And, my business wasn't that successful. But I've also been staying home with my kids and doing all that. But the one thing I didn't really expect is, I do need to focus and block out time and do things like that. So
what I'm kind of hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is one thing you might have thought, but not really, I don't know, put into practice per se, but you're like, all right, I got to do this, is being disciplined to treat your business like a business.
correct.
You're like, all right, I'm going to do real estate, but I'm not doing the things I need to do to be successful.
Right.
And then once you started to do these things, creating the structure, the time management, the calendar, it's like, okay, now I'm running it like a business.
Exactly. I see that I'm more successful that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you got to get disciplined. And what I find out happens with myself and most agents is when they do stick to a schedule, and the more structured it is, like if they put everything in their calendar, personal, family, relationship, work, extracurricular activities, like that calendar's loaded. The more in the calendar, the more time they end up having for themselves because they're on such a regiment, rather than when you have these blanks, you're like, what do I do now? And you're not efficient with your time. It's like you're trying to juggle all these different things, but not really doing anything.
And that's what I struggled when I started taking the leads and doing all that. And I was kind of working one-on-one with Debbie, and she's like, put it in your calendar, because I was sitting down at the table at night, eating dinner and working, and sometimes that's okay, but not every night.
No, especially with the family, you do want to have dedicated time
Yeah.
for your daughter, husband, and things like that. And it's good, I think, to decompress too, because when you work, and your brain's always going, at some point, it's the law of diminishing returns. It's like, well, and you need to decompress. Like, you need a clear mind. Yeah. Or if you work, and let's say it's 5 to 8, and you don't take a break, and you're like, all right, I'm going to plug away these next 3 hours. If you take like an hour break, you might be able to knock out the work in less than 2 hours, or it might take you 3 hours just because you're so fatigued. You didn't take a break from that screen, from thinking, from just trying to figure out stuff. So I completely agree with that as well. And obviously, so one thing that you've done upon coming on board here, treating your business like a business, more discipline, using a calendar. What's another thing right now you're kind of doing to ensure success in today's marketplace?
Getting out there and being aggressive in this market right now, the way it is. I have clients that they really want a house, and the way the husband and the wife's schedules were working, it was like they would send me a house and they would say, well, we can't see it until 3 days from now or 4 days. And we just saw the houses going. And the last house we saw, which was last Friday, I said, listen, we need to get more aggressive. That's it. I said, if you find a house and you can make it and your wife can't, I'll show it to you that day. And when she's off at night, I'll take her to see it too. But we just need to get more aggressive with it. And that was Friday. Friday night at midnight, he sent me a house. We went and saw it. We were the first ones at 10 a.m. We put in the contract, and we beat like 6 other.
Congratulations!
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I was very excited. He was like, "Was this how aggressive you want to be?" And I'm like, "Yes, perfect."
And look what happens. You got the desired outcome.
The house, when he saw it, it was like 5 minutes on the market. So I was like, it really worked out perfect. I think we were the first clients to go see it, and the first offer that he got. So
what I'm hearing then is that you became, instead of being an order taker and letting the clients kind of dictate how we're going to work in this, you became more of the advisor.
Yeah.
A little bit, I don't want to say you were controlling, but you took control, being like, hey, you have a goal of getting you a house. I'm dedicated to getting you a house. If we want to get you a house, we got to do this. You put out a plan of action, told them in this place, we can't be so passive, waiting 3 or 4 days for us to get our shit together. We need to go out and see the house. And once you did that, you also put structure in place. And by creating that structure and coming up with a plan and getting the buy-in from the clientele, you were able to accomplish the goal.
Yep.
Yeah, so it makes perfect sense. And I think that's what a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of your peers that you talk to that are in real estate, whether it's within or outside of this brokerage, that you're going to find that a lot of them will just kind of sit back and let the clients kind of dictate what to do. And those are the same agents that you find not having success. And it's like, you don't have to be pushy. You don't have to come off as, an asshole or anything like that. But you do have to take control. You're the advisor.
Professional.
They need the information. You need to give them the information so that they can have success. Because obviously, if it's not working the way that they're doing it, then you got to kind of be willing to step in rather than just kind of being a hamster in a wheel and keep doing the same thing that's not working.
Right.
So, if, right now, with you kind of getting into real estate, I think this question will it always resonates a lot with the audience, but also will resonate with a lot of you because it's one of the main things that got the wheels turning your head to kind of jump into real estate. But what are some of the tactics that you do to help create a work-life balance? What are some things, some maybe safeguards or governors you put in place to ensure that you're there for your daughter, whether it's school pickup, drop-offs, dinner, cooking dinner, spending time with her? How do you manage that?
To be honest, it's hard right now. My main thing is I want to be available for my clients with the market the way it is right now. So, I really try to, when I schedule my clients, I'm doing it, after I cook dinner or after I pick up the kids. But if I can't, I'll have, family members or my husband or, we're kind of, it's like moving parts. I've got this day. Can you pick up the kids? Or, it's definitely, it's a struggle for me because, like I said, I really want to be there for my clients. Yeah. So if they want to go see a house at 5 o'clock, I make myself available. And I don't know if a lot of real estate agents do that. It's just something that, if they're serious and I've got to drive to, Spring Hill or Weeki Wachee and they want to see 5 houses, then I'm going to make myself available.
So the one I'm hearing then, Theresa, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, is you have this structure, this process, this calendar you stick to, and it is your drop off, your pickups, your cooking dinner. You're even putting that in the calendar, and you're like trying to, work with your clientele and filling the gaps. Hey, can we do it after dinner? Can we do it before dinner, in between school pickup and before dinner? So that way I have time to be there for my kids. However, in a very aggressive market, occasionally I might need to readjust this. I'm using family support, whether it be my husband or extended family member, to kind of help with the kids so I can be there for my client because we're in such an inventory-stricken market.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what I think allows you to have the success that you're having is you handle everything like the business. And when you're self-employed, it's you have to put your personal obligations in that calendar, which a lot of people don't do. And what will happen is those things get neglected. And what I see from a lot of agents time and time again, if you miss out on everything you enjoy personally, and then you miss out on relationship or family or friend gatherings, whatever that is. And then real estate's tough, especially getting started, right? You're not having the success that you want. You feel like your life's going to shit. What am I doing? I'm wasting my time. I don't see my kids. I'm not doing anything I want to. And I'm not making money. I'm not having success. Right. But by putting these little safeguards or governors in place, what I call them, where you're having that structure, okay, I might not be at every dinner 7 days a week, but I'm going to damn sure be there for 4. Yep. 3 of them I might have to go with the client, but I don't feel this guilt that I'm not there for my kids. I have a structure, I'm working and I'm there for my client, so now I'm having some success here. And if I'm, in a wall business-wise, or, when it comes to kind of business and executing contracts and things of that nature, you don't feel that without a calendar, your mind's always kind of with work and clientele, you didn't miss out on the stuff you like to do, and then obviously being there for your kids, husband, and things like that as well.
Agreed.
I think that's very important. That's something that I always try to press, especially for newer agents, is trying to create that work-life balance. That's why it's something that we kind of ask every agent to figure out what exactly it is that they did and how did they incorporate it, because I think it's something that most agents struggle with. Yeah,
and like I said, I'm learning as I go as well. Yeah. This is, taking leads and having this many leads and many clients, and it's a juggling act for me as well. Yeah. So I'm learning every day. At first, it was hard. My husband was like, "Why aren't And my daughter said something to me the other day. I was on my phone. She's like, "You're always on your phone." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "I am working. I promise you." Mm-hmm. And so I had to explain that to her, So yeah.
It's one of those tough conversations you have to have. But I think as chaotic as you might feel, and as, so many things kind of getting thrown your way without having the structure and things in place, you just become overwhelmed. You can't function in that realm. Yeah. Yes. So I completely get it. So right now, in the marketplace, it's a tough marketplace for seasoned agents with experience who've had a lot of success, just with the shortage of inventory and kind of, everything that's going on in the marketplace. From when rates went up late last year, and then, the market kind of cooled down. Now it's, hey, we're having inventory problems. Everybody seems not too concerned about the rates, and we're back to a very aggressive seller's market with a lot of buyer activity. Mm-hmm. If you have an agent out there who's struggling, they're not, really having the production that they like. Maybe they're newly licensed, not sure where to go, or maybe they're kind of like where you were once were, kind of just kicking around tires in their head. Could this be a good career for me? What's the one piece of advice you give somebody starting off or struggling if they were to get into real estate or to get into production?
I mean, like we were talking about earlier, it's a business. You have to be a self-starter. You have to be able to time block. You have to go out and get your business. And, you know, whether it's door knocking, you know, sending out flyers and all of that. I mean, at first, I don't think it's that easy.
Yeah.
If I can be honest.
It's not.
It's not easy. And, you know, I actually really enjoy 54 Realty, and I love the leads, and, you know, I have been staying home with my kids, so I wasn't door knocking, I wasn't farming, I wasn't doing any of that stuff, but this just fits my lifestyle, you know?
Yeah.
But, yeah, getting out there and hustling and building a business for yourself. And, you know, if you can do that, it's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely.
But you have to be able to do all those things.
100%. So I'm going to sum that up in one word. What I'm hearing is you have to work.
Have to work.
Yeah.
You have to work.
And I think a lot of agents don't know they have a vision of work, and then there's the reality of real estate work. And sometimes they're disillusioned a little bit. You know, hey, oh yeah, I got to work. I can handle that, no problem. Then you get in and you're like, holy shit, what did I sign up for? Right? So.
Well, I just closed on a house, and I was spending some time the day of the closing. We were waiting for everything to fund, and I was sitting there with the buyers, and they sold their house in St. Pete, and the agent was going through some stuff that he was hearing about, and he looked at me and he goes, I just thought realtors didn't do anything. And he's like hearing from the other realtor all the stuff that she had to put in to this one transaction, and then it canceled right before closing. He's like, I never knew. I literally thought you guys just did nothing. You sat back, you wrote the paperwork, and then you collected a check.
You got these big checks, right?
Right.
That's it. That's all there is to it.
So I was like, okay, well, I'm glad you saw that. You know?
You got to experience it firsthand, so now
Right.
that you might see the value of using a real estate agent for
Right.
moving forward.
Yes.
Well, Theresa, we greatly appreciate you being a guest on this week's podcast. For any buyer or seller out in the Tampa Bay market, whether it's as north as Hernando or down south, you know, St. Petersburg, Pinellas, Tampa area, you know, Sarasota, what's the best contact information for yourself so that they can get a hold of you? We'll add it to all the social media as well. Why don't you leave us the best number for the clientele to reach on, whether it's a buyer or seller looking to buy in the Bay Area or sell a home, and the best email address that they can kind of reach you on.
My cell phone, 813-992-4202. And then my email is Theresa, Theresa, @54realty.com.
Excellent. Well, Theresa, we greatly appreciate you being a guest on this week's podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we greatly appreciate all of you for tuning in to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook.